Hello and welcome back to the Excurse. It has been it's been a long while since I've done one of these. I think the last time was with Mira, probably. I think it was with Mira. But in any case, I think that's because I've guested on your show a couple of times, and whenever we do these, Terry, I am never sure until the last minute whether it's my show or your show. I don't think either of us knows, and then we start and we're like, whose show is this? Don't know.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm back with Terry, who is obviously making Bloody Students, as we've discussed before. But you are gearing up for next week. You've got a big week ahead.
I do. It's our Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I have left it till the very last minute to actually. I should have done this ages ago. Kickstarter should be well prepared, but I set it up a couple of weeks ago, in my defense.
Yeah.
But I didn't finish it off and hit submit to Kickstarter until yesterday, with only 4 days left to go, counting today. And they do ask for between 1 to 3 working days.
Right.
So that the current message is it's being reviewed and you should hear by May the 1st. And like May the 1st is the day I want it to go live.
Right. Well, let's assume that there can't be. I mean, I'm pretty sure when they say, we'll look at it, it is like, are you making illegal pornography or
Exactly,
I think you're going to be okay. Is what I'm saying.
Well,
I think you're going to be all right.
you say that,
No,
but I've ticked all the boxes and done everything correctly and done a nice video on that. But then I read their small print and it said something along the lines of they're not. Do you know what? They're actually in their T's and C's. It says they don't want something overly slick and overproduced.
What does that mean?
They want to sort of promote people who are like, well, I'm just a guy doing a thing. They don't want to see like some corporate video because it's
do you feel like
misleading.
you've put yourself forward as too professional now, and maybe it'll
Maybe it may be that I don't think I've put myself forward as true. That could never happen. But no, not in any bizarro universe. No. What it is some of their small print does say, do not use video that misrepresents your project. And
Right.
I haven't. My video starts off with me chatting here like this, and then in the corner is some clips of Offworld, saying, oh, this has gone off to the States now. And then later on, I start talking about Bloody Students, and I'd say, I want it to be reminiscent of the golden days of the VHS rentals era, all those classic films like Gremlins, Ghostbusters. So I've got this little inset of literally 2-second clips of Gremlins, Big Trouble in Little China, Darkman, like stuff like that. And I don't know whether I should have put something like "not my films," as like an asterisk.
I'm sure they surely they're not.
No,
going to
I
be
mean
that
you've got to be
pedantic.
a bit of a numbskull to think that I was going. I made these.
I made
if I made
Gremlins
those, I
too.
wouldn't need money from a Kickstarter, would I? But yeah, that's the only minor thing I think they could come back and go, could you remove those? So I've already done an edit where instead of having, for example, a clip of Edward Scissorhands, like the picture of Edward Scissorhands would pop up in the corner like that, saying films like this, So again, they usually get back to you before 3 days. So hopefully, if I get the green light on May the 1st, we just.
I'm sure you will. Yeah, I feel like you'll be okay.
It's not my first rodeo, so
no, it's not your first Kickstarter, right? You've done Kickstarters before because you did Offworld was a Kickstarter, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did Offworld. Offworld was the Kickstarter we did 6 years ago.
Yeah,
and that's what started it all off, really, because we were like never done Kickstarter before, and we were like, well, we're doing a short film. If we can get like $2,000, that'd be awesome. And all of a sudden, we get $10,000, and we're like, right, well, we got $10,000, and like the fools we were, the poor naive fools we were like, we can make a feature film on $10,000, and then Kickstarter take $1,000 out. Then that's their 10%, and then you've got to spend we spent about 500 or 600 quid on T-shirts and rewards to pay back to people, plus postage. So I think we ended up at about $8,000. So it's not that much, really.
No, not when you're paying people and
not when you're paying
hiring equipment,
like a couple of grand, and editing a couple of grand, and CG, it's that kind of, it all disappears. But the thing is, the weird thing, and I've noticed this again with Bloody Students, when you speak to people you've never spoken to before, if you tell them you're doing a low budget film, they kind of think, time waster, just gonna, take the Michael, and they don't want to know. But if
Yeah.
you tell them I'm doing my second feature film, they go, ka-ching,
Oh my
and they
god.
go,
Yeah.
yes, well, if you want to hire my garden shed, it's £4,000 a day.
There is
'Cause
a
we've had to,
there is a
yeah.
scale to feature films. There's
There is,
E.T. and then,
yeah,
and
absolutely. I
as we
mean,
discussed on your show, there is a scale to zero budget as well. There's a very big scale to zero
yeah,
budget.
they'll call a zero budget film
A million?
something like under a million or million
Mm.
or under. A low budget film, Layer Cake with Daniel Craig, low
Yeah.
budget film, $4 million, £4 million.
Yeah, there you go.
Shaun of the Dead was like 8 million,
Mm.
and that's pretty low budget, really, considering. I didn't we look up the budgets for Hot Fuzz and The World's End,
I
and they
think
go
we did. I could do that right now.
exponentially higher.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of
It
course.
goes up
Absolutely.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine it gets higher after every film.
Yeah. So, for anyone watching, Shaun of the Dead was made as a by working title films, out of Channel 4 because of Spaced, and it was like, oh well, we'll give you 8 million just to play with that. What was the
Yeah.
budget for Hot Fuzz?
So the budget was 6.1 for Sean.
For Sean? Oh, it's 6.1.
There's no way. There's no way that they made Hot Fuzz for 6.1. No way on earth. Let's find out. Because I'm really curious now. Edgar Wright.
But the best thing about Sean is obviously it was such a big hit because they only spent 6.1 on it. It raked it in. It paid all its marketing fees back, and
12.
people forget I'm actually good.
So it was 12 to 16 million budget for Hot Fuzz. So
Hot Fuzz.
Least double. At least double
yeah.
the budget. And then I imagine World's End
a bit more, I bet.
was 20 million. So yes,
There you
exponentially more every single time.
Yeah.
But so by that logic, Off-World was 10,000. So your second film is going to be 20. And then it'll be 30, and then it'll be 40, and then
Well,
no, actually it doubles, so it won't.
I'll be a pensioner by the time we get to decent.
Well, no, if it's
we
doubling
get to
every
Shaun
time.
of the Dead's budget.
Mm.
But the only reason the budget on Bloody Students is bigger is because we preempted it and actually put our savings in the kitty before with Kickstarter. So we may get nearly double that of Off-World, which is great.
That would be fantastic. I was thinking about this today because your movie is a there are movies that you can, I mean, like our current film, The 12th Day, is very much written around the idea that we're going to have no budget. It's one of those movies that's it's guy in a mask kills people in city and woodland. So that you can do. When you've got an ambitious concept, and as soon as you're like, well, we're in a museum and we've got makeup effects, you've got the mummies and stuff. It's really exciting stuff, but you can't do that with zero budget. I mean, at that point, you definitely need something to get you going.
No, you're right, and I think I mean you probably saw the post I put up on Instagram recently. Every film I make will be high concept.
I did see that.
Short. Yeah, just because I'm feeling I'm about to kick the bucket any moment, so it's like got to make something really ostentatious. But no, it's like, yeah, you're right. You if you're doing a film with mummies in a museum, you need a museum. You need mummies. So it's like, I've got to tell you about this. As a rule, I try not to slag any movie off. I try and see the good in anything because I know how hard it is, right? But I was surfing the streaming services yesterday, and I found a British movie called, well, it's got two titles. It's called The Mummy Resurgence, and it's also called Rise of the Mummy. And it's a British film. You can watch it for free on YouTube anyway.
I might know.
And it makes Off-World look like a Chris Nolan film, right?
Do you know? I mean. It is one of those situations. You think your film, I think you're always critical of your own work, and you think your film's terrible, and then you look at some films and you're like, wow.
This one was, shall we say, not great. The good thing about it, though, I mean, it had really nice opening titles. It had really good sound design. The sound design was good, and the quality of the picture was good. It was like shot on a black magic or something, But there was no lighting. It was also very flat and kind of no contrast in it at all, no shadows. It
Right.
was like the opening scene was in a forest and it was broad daylight, and their mummy was about 5'6" in a really baggy outfit. So it looked like they maybe
It's
made
me
the
in a
costume
baggy
for a tall
outfit.
guy and couldn't get the guy at the last minute and said, "Oh, you can
That'll
put it
do.
on. This mummy's short and he's got this really baggy suit on."
Oh
And I was like,
no.
I haven't filmed a single frame of Bloody Students yet, but my mummy's already better than that because I've cast guys who are over 6'4" and skinny as a rake, and I intend on having them wearing very tight mummy outfits to look bony and, you
Yeah,
know.
they're Boris
Uh,
Karloff build, and that's
exactly, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
But it's quite scary, Kickstarter, this time around. A few things have changed.
I think
They no longer
it's
use PayPal.
yeah, that's a big one. I am that alone must have dissuaded so many people to
Yeah.
use Kickstarter because
It's like Stripe and a bank account and all this kind of stuff.
which I guess
Um,
is, I mean, it's fine. It's just I think these days people are so used to paying with PayPal, aren't they? It's like PayPal's the one because obviously you're proper covered with PayPal. You can get your money back
Yeah.
easily with PayPal and all of that. But yeah, it is interesting. I was really surprised they removed that actually.
Yeah, it was very surprising. And they've also done a thing starting on May the 1st, incidentally, which is when you offer your different tiers for, from like £5, £10, 15, whatever,
Mm.
you can't have one that says £20 and no reward. You have to add items to every single
So you
tier.
have to give something.
Yeah, they do have the very first one you'll come across will say donate without any reward. So that's like their default for somebody
An
wants to pay
open
£1 or
donation,
whatever it is.
sure.
Yeah, but everything else it says we recommend you. Well, no, we from May the 1st we insist that you add items, whether physical or digital. So they can be like
From the date that
emails
you
or
plan to do your Kickstarter specifically,
put
we
that in,
impose these
basically.
rules. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like right, make it a little bit harder. Okay. So this time we put the goal for 10,000. As you probably know, Kickstarter is all or nothing funding. So if you don't hit your goal, you don't get any of the money.
Yeah. Well, let's hope you further the goal. But
yeah,
at the
it'd
very
be good
least,
to smash it because obviously we've got things like postage and making T-shirts and all that
Yeah.
malarkey to do. And but originally I set the entire campaign up on Indiegogo because I thought, well, let's do something different. And Indiegogo's known for being film based or whatever.
Indiegogo's the one you keep the money regardless with Indiegogo, right?
Well, you can choose.
Okay,
you can
right.
choose. Yeah, you can have all or nothing, or you can choose flexible funding where you get whatever you've raised, which is good for a creator.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for backers, it feels like I spoke to someone who did a successful Indiegogo, and they said the feedback they had was that a lot of backers were like, "Well, if you don't hit your target,
you're not going to make the product that I've signed up for.
You're going to make off with the money." It's like, what are you going to do with our cash?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I was thinking, well, you make it anyway, but you'd make a lesser product, and then you could argue, well, they've paid for a higher product than what they're getting ultimately because
a little bit of dissatisfaction there, expecting you to make the thing that you promised you'd make. Yeah. So, and again, I could have done the same strategy as we did with Offworld, which was aim low, and anything higher you're bound to get it because you've hit your target.
Yeah.
But this time I thought, no, I'm going to aim high, which is at least what Offworld made, and then leave that to decide the validity of the project and go, well, not that I'm going to like give it up or anything. No. It's more like I can put it back another year. If you don't make that money,
we can go other funding avenues and
yeah. So like develop it a bit more and that kind of thing. So before I get into some spoilery specifics, when is this likely to be going out?
Whenever you want. It can go out tonight if you want.
No, I want to tell you the spoilery stuff.
Well, then it will go out. When do you want it to go out? It'll go out when you want it to go out.
Anytime after 1st of May.
Fine.
Or even on the 1st of May.
It will go out on the 1st of May then.
All right.
If that works for you or the 2nd, whatever's best for you. So don't worry, spoil away.
All right. Okay. So, we, as you probably know from last time, my plan is to, we've cast almost all the students in the film.
Yeah.
Yes, we have cast all the students. Of course we have. We've cast the mummies. We've cast the creepy caretaker. But out of the adult characters, the grown-ups, I was going to have sort of celebrity cameos.
Yes.
And again, for us people on the street, anyone who's been like vaguely in EastEnders or something is still a celebrity because they're
Yeah,
a known actor and name. They're
absolutely.
not Tom Cruise, but they're still well known
Hmm.
or slightly better known. So I went to a convention last year in Weston-super-Mare, and I paid for an autograph and photo just to have a word with David Bradley, because I was like, he could be the ideal creepy
He
caretaker.
would be
And
amazing as a creepy
he
caretaker.
would be great, because I was thinking of Mad Basil from The World's End. Don't
Yeah,
ask me that, Um, and all I got really was, speak to me, agent.
that's
I
a
thought, well,
no.
he is playing
That
Doctor Who at the moment. It's going to be quite
yeah,
expensive.
yeah.
And he did come across as super frail. And I was like, man, I don't want him to like keel over on my film. Although, publicity.
Of a sort, yeah.
Yeah, David Bradley's last film was this low-budget mummy thing. What a shame. No, so in the end, I ended up casting a guy I know from Cardiff, Bill Bellamy, who, if you've ever seen the Off-World trailer, he's the guy who's like a general, and he's interrogating our lead character.
Yes.
So because he's really good at what he does, he's local and he's available, kind of thing. I thought he's got quite an important role, and we could do with someone who's more accessible and cheaper, who doesn't have to come from London and have an agent to deal with and all this malarkey. So Bill Bellamy is in the caretaker role. But I've been sniffing around and contacting people and begging and pleading, and we've secured, in principle, which means 90% in,
Of course.
Paul Putner. Now, Paul Putner is one of those people who they don't know the name, but you see the face and go, oh, him.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Putner was in almost every episode of the Peter Serafinowicz Show and Little Britain. He's been in Downton Abbey recently. He was in Time, Gentlemen, Please. He is not most well known because it was a deleted scene. He played a cabbie in Shaun of the Dead. So when just after Shaun meets up with bumps into Daisy, from space, and they have a chat about how you're doing. It's because there's a train strike or whatever, so he gets in a cab.
Yeah.
And this is a really short clip where on Paul Putner's the cabbie, and he's like, yeah, this bloke came out to me, and he was like, oh, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, mate. I told him to get out my cab, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just ended up on the cutting room floor. But he did get to play a zombie, apparently uncredited in the film, so I have to look out for where he is. But he's friends with David Walliams and Edgar Wright and all that lot anyway. And I had a call with him last Sunday to talk about it a bit more. He's already lending us a really vintage Return of the Living Dead T-shirt that he's found in his attic. It's cool. The original like movie poster. He said it's a bit musty and a bit moldy. I'm like, I don't care. Our lead actress is having that. Our lead actress who's playing Kells the punk, because her character is. Her name is Kelly Quigley, and she's wearing the red sleeveless jacket, a bit like Linnea Quigley from Return of the Living Dead. So really meta to have that T-shirt. So he said, yeah, you can borrow a T-shirt. So he has agreed, his agent has said he's agreed in principle, and we're allowed to use his name in the Kickstarter.
Fantastic.
To say, if all goes well, we get the funding to afford him and his availability is fine. He's agreed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the big one that came in a couple of days ago, Sophie Aldred from Doctor Who.
When we did your show a couple of months back, you said you were trying, and I was hoping you were going to say that.
Well, I was trying, but I didn't have the cojones to actually.
Or you intended to? I can't remember.
I was
if
intending
you said,
to, and I was like, oh, would she? And I thought she might. So in the end, I can't remember whether I used the phone first or emailed them. I think I emailed them. And I got through to her agent, and her agent was really nice. And she goes, well, this certainly, we haven't seen the script yet, but this certainly sounds like something Sophie would be interested in. Unfortunately, she's on touring in New Zealand and Australia until the middle of May, but we'll get back to you then. I thought, well, it's halfway through the Kickstarter,
Mm-hmm.
And then she got back to me the day after and said, I've just spoke to Sophie. She's interested. She's agreeing in principle. I'm like, what?
That's amazing.
Wow. So she goes, can you send us a script? I said, yeah. And she said, what role is it? I said, well, there's two roles. One role is a museum lecturer, like a tour guide, who talks about some of the Egyptian stuff. And then she has a bit of an argument and puts the caretaker in his place. And I said, the smaller role then is like in the epilogue, it's just a school teacher who's taking the kids around the museum, some youngsters.
Yeah.
and she's got like one line. And I thought, well, they'll pick the one line one because they're in and out, you know. And she's like, no, Sophie wants the better part. I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough. And I said,
Have whatever
is
role
it
you
okay
want.
to use her name? So yeah, put her in there. It's okay to use her name. So
Amazing.
that's 2.
That's really cool.
And this afternoon, I bit the bullet again, picked up the phone because I'm turning into the guy who phones people instead of using emails.
I think you need to. It's way more direct, isn't it?
Yeah, because people ignore your emails, you know. So I picked up the phone because I was considering this guy for a long time, and I called the agent. The thing is, this goes out live. I can't because the guy hasn't agreed in principle.
This isn't going out live. This can go out whenever you want. So if you
I mean, what I'm trying to say is, if this goes out publicly and I start dropping names, it just dawned on me that would I get into trouble for, you know, because they're not ironclad, you know, they're not actually a shoe-in. Paul Putner and Sophie Aldred, yes, they've agreed in principle as long as I say that.
Yeah.
But if I drop
Henry Cavill's a maybe, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically. Let's use the stand-in name Henry Cavill. Well,
okay, yeah, sure. If you name drop Henry Cavill, what's the worst that could happen? It's fine.
Yeah, but all right. I won't even say the guy's name, so I don't get in trouble.
That's fair enough. But it's sounding very promising anyway. Is you know?
Yeah, basically, I just called the guy up straight away, the agent, and I said, look, I'm interested in blah 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 blah. Is he available? And they said, when are you shooting? I said, kind of September, and it'll be ongoing through 2024. And they said, no, that's good because he's in a play at the moment till September, but he may be free afterwards. That's brilliant. It's like a day's work.
Yeah, so you could work around his schedule then at that point.
This guy is no longer a massive British star, but he's an absolute icon. Everyone knows who he is. You say his name and everyone goes, yeah, oh, what a guy. So it's like he had his heyday in the past. He's still working these days, but he's basically a much loved British icon. And the chances are, the agent I spoke to, super nice, said, send me the script, tell me what the part is, and I gave him a quick rundown of what the film's about. Sure. He said, yeah, it sounds fun. So if we get this guy, I'll be over the moon.
Sounds exciting.
I mean, sorry to the viewers or the listeners who are watching this and going, why didn't they say the name? It's he hasn't agreed yet.
I think they can. I think everyone can understand why. I mean, you know.
Yeah. And what I'll tell you off air who the guy is.
Oh yeah,
and,
I need to know.
You'll understand what I mean.
yeah.
Because it is really exciting. Because if he comes in, although he's no longer like A-list or
it's a name everyone's going to recognize.
1,000,000%. Everyone's going to go, you got him. Oh my god. And you know, we got a weird connection due to a cartoon he voiced years ago, but that's as far as I can go.
Right.
We know the people who we both know and have worked with the person who made the cartoon. Anyway.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm stop doing the vague nonsense. So you can see I've got.
I was going to say you've been clearly using the 3D printer and.
Mine. I sold my 3D printer.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Last year.
Did that go into the funds for this?
Yeah. But I did hire a guy to 3D print this. This is just the top half. It weighs an absolute ton. It's 7 foot tall in total. That's just the top half. I mean, it's obviously a patchwork quilt at the moment because he's not painted.
Well, of course.
But he's glued together. He's all in one piece. I've just got to put the hands on and the sticks and everything that he holds in his big beard thing. And then we're going to start making him look like he's made of stone with some paint on it.
It looks incredible.
We bought that as a 3D model online for about 10 quid. And the guy I hired to 3D print that for me did it in hundreds of pieces. It took him months because he's got about 5 or 6 printers anyway. Yeah. And the original plan was to have 5 of these for the 5 different mummies, or four mummies and a pharaoh. But when I found out the price of that, I went, let's just stick with the one.
You can duplicate and put more in, you know.
We will use it many times all over the museum, you know, so why not, you know. I may even get some footage of it against the green screen and
I was thinking you could
to pop them in, so there's 4 in a row or something like that.
Yeah.
And they could also tweak the color or whatever. That's good. So I'm a little bit terrified and also really excited at the same time. I'm checking my Gmail constantly for this thing from Kickstarter to say, A, you have to change something, or B, it's all go, press submit. You know,
I feel like it's going to be fine, but yeah, if I was in
I've
your position, I'd feel exactly the same for sure.
Oh, I tell you what else we've got, which we're going to be offering in the Kickstarter as little prizes, and this may interest you as well.
Mm.
Hang on, was it you who told me about it originally? Because I forget who I talked to. Basically, I was talking to someone on Instagram about when you have to have blood in a scene, right?
Mm.
And I was like, I talked to our makeup girl, and she said, "Well, I've got a formula for fake blood that doesn't stain." You know, because I was like,
Right.
every time I've used blood in a film where I got beaten up and stuff, it was golden syrup with food coloring.
Mm-hmm.
But that does go very pink, and I had a pink beard and a pink face, and it stains the floor. She goes, "No, I've got this stuff that is washable, you know, and it doesn't." I thought, well, that's cool. And then someone, like I said, it might have been you, so apologies if I've forgotten it was you, said to me, "Have you seen this guy called Scott Prop and Roll on Instagram? He's an American guy, works in the movies, and he makes fake everything.
That was not me.
Hammers out of rubber, breeze blocks,
Wow, okay.
broken glass that you can bend, and all it, smashable bottles." And he did this clip where he's lying on the floor, completely motionless, surrounded by blood, like someone's just caved his head in. And he gets up and goes, "Oh, look at this mess." And he just peels up the puddle because it's made of urethane rubber.
Oh, that's amazing.
So what they've done is they've poured the urethane rubber with red in it onto a piece of glass, let it set, and it looks like a wet puddle. You put it down. And
That's incredible.
Perfect. So I've dubbed them
what an ingenious
Bloodles.
idea.
Yeah, Bloodles. Puddle of blood.
That's fantastic. So have you made some? Have you tried yet?
Well, my mate Clive, is doing the silicone masks and stuff, he uses urethane all the time. And I said, "Could you make these?" He said, "Piece of cake." So he's going to make me a load.
Amazing.
So when we're dressing, you know, we're places that we're hiring out, we can just put a few of those on the floor, and we'll have some CG stuff. Maybe we'll have some of that washable stuff, but it minimizes the cleanup.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got people running around getting slashed. I don't really want to throw buckets of blood around like a Peter Jackson film.
Yeah.
Spinning steel suckers. But I think mummies are going to be like dusty and creaky rather than.
Oh, I assumed it was victims, not mummies.
Well, yeah, mummies are the victims are going to be bleeding, you know, in places.
It is bloody students after all.
Well, I want them very bloody and dirty at the end of it, you know. Not like swimming pools worth of blood, and not like Renfield. From what I've heard, I've not seen Renfield yet.
I'm unsure about Renfield.
I've heard it's really good, but it's really over the top.
I like the this is an aside. I love the concept. I love the concept of Renfield as an abused spouse.
Yeah,
going to a
type thing.
That I love, and I was completely on board. The thing I don't think works for me, and it might just be a trailer thing, but I just feel like giving him superpowers undercuts the joke and the kind of fun idea for me. I was like, well, now he seems like he could probably beat up Dracula, which is kind of
should be pathetic, shouldn't he?
Yeah, like for me, that pathetic. I love the concept. It's just when I saw that in the trailer, I was like, oh, now I'm not so sure. But I think the main thing about that film, and I said this on the Movies Made Us Do It just now, actually, the only thing that matters to me is that Nick Cage looks like he's having a good time, and as long as Nick Cage is having a good time, I'm happy. It's all that matters.
Well, I did see I did find a viewable copy online, which was obviously not the best quality, and I watched the first sort of 5 minutes, and then at that point I thought, nah, this deserves like a decent viewing, so I won't bother.
Sure.
But in the first 10 minutes, it shows a little bit. I'm not spoiling anything, but it's like he shows him in his support class talking about it.
Yeah.
And the first girl speaking is, "Oh, my partner was a monster, a real monster," and he's looking at her like, "You got problems." And then there's a little bit of a voiceover. "Hi, my name's Renfield, and I did." And then when he starts talking about his story, it cuts to black and white. And they've done a complete recreation of the Bela Lugosi Dracula.
Well, I had heard that Nick Cage is doing Lugosi's
Nick Cage
Dracula.
Comes down the stairs. "I am Count Dracula." And it's like, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
It looks like 1930s. But that's as far as I got, and I'm like, well,
I'm gonna watch it eventually. I'm just
Yeah.
So
yeah, there is this thing that Renfield is supposed to be this absolute baldric, isn't he? He's like the lowest of the low, and
Yeah, I mean,
quite pathetic.
I just think that the dynamic kind of gets a little, I love the idea of this like meeting, and he's just talking about being abused by his partner, and his partner turned out to be drunk. That is hilarious. I just don't think the point where I feel like, oh well, he could probably fight back looking at the powers he's got. That's like, oh, that kind of takes the edge off the comedy for me. But I'll wait.
But they may do something else with it. I guess.
Absolutely.
I guess they did. That
I guess he's
that's
probably dependent on Dracula for the power, which is probably what they'll do. Which
Yeah. I'm sure it kind of, because I can eat cockroaches all day and not get superpowers. So it may be something like filtered through Dracula's influence or something. So I guess they must have thrown that in to say, well, what else can we do to Renfield that hasn't been seen before? So
sure.
I mean, they might do it in a way that, like you say, it's dependent on his power or
something.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, like you said, it kind of begs the question. Let me guess, he's going to use that power at the last minute to kill Dracula or something.
Yeah.
Because he's always got that to fall back on. So who knows?
I was kind of, to be honest, I kind of hope the movie ends with them patching up their differences and deciding to continue evil. That would be like the perfect ending for me. It's like Dracula agrees to just treat him a little bit better, and they continue to conquer the world.
That's the British movie makers' idea of an ending, right? I remember when I went to see Independence Day in the cinema with my boss years ago. He came out and he said, I thought that was really good, but he said, if this was a British film, the aliens would have won.
He's probably right.
I'm like, you're right. In America, there's always this kind of weird morality that they have in everything. Bad guys have to get their comeuppance and good guys have to win. And do you remember the film?
And if we do win, I feel like if we do win, it's like a War of the Worlds scenario where it's like, well, we didn't win. They caught a cold and died. We got lucky. Yeah, we got lucky. Yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
The film Deep Blue Sea. It was Thomas Jane from The Punisher.
Yeah.
Samuel Jackson, LL Cool J, and there's a shark in this.
Genetically modified sharks?
I think it is.
Right? Yeah.
And people get bumped off and killed and stuff. And Samuel Jackson's he manages to escape until 3/4 of the way through the film. I'm going to spoil this for some people now.
It's an old film. I think
he's been a good guy. But then he makes this speech. He sort of has his little monologue and talks about how something happened in the past, and as a result, he made the choice to sacrifice a lot of people, which instantly makes him a bad guy. And seconds later, the shark jumps from behind him and just bites him in half.
Karma shark.
Yeah, exactly. It's a kind of, we can't kill him off yet. We've got to give him a reason to, the audience.
Samuel Jackson's too likable. Quick.
We'll give him
Do you think that was an on the day decision? Someone on the crew was like, hang on a minute. He's been a good guy, though. And then they were like, let's just quickly write this speech.
Let's make him deplorable. Quick.
Yeah.
Say something. I once pushed a granny into oncoming traffic. It's Karma Shark. That would be a really funny concept, wouldn't it? Because of Karma Ghost or some kind of karma slasher, basically. He wants to attack people, and he hears that they're really virtuous really and righteous. Yeah. And he's like, I can't kill him now. And someone says, yeah, but then I when I was 5, I tripped my brother over into a nest of brambles.
Yeah,
that makes you fair game. There you go.
That could, he never, like a horror movie where they never kill anyone because everyone they happen upon turns out to be okay.
Yeah, the slasher's got a conscience.
Yeah, it's just got this really annoying moral compass.
I've always wanted to be a slasher, but
just not very
the
good
only way I can do it and sleep at night is knowing I killed people who have done bad things, like Dexter. He's like, I've got this dark passenger, but they have to be bad. If they got an ounce of goodness about them, I can't really polish them off. I feel bad about it.
Yeah. There's something in
there. I want to ask you about the 12th day, because you're doing Sunday shoots and stuff, aren't you?
We are, yeah. Before we do that, though, just very quickly, you've managed to, in principle, secure Sophie.
Yep.
And obviously follow you on Instagram and Bloody Students on Instagram. And you have made, in reference to Ace, you have made an Ace-like jacket.
Yeah.
Do they share a scene? Do you know if they? Well, I guess you do know if they share a scene because you've written the roles.
Do you know what? They don't.
Oh,
they don't. My original plan, even before I considered Sophie Aldred, was to throw in some pop culture references. I mean, everyone in the film has got a name based on something. So, Fordy, the main male character, is from Ford Prefect.
Yeah.
Trish is from Trisha McMillan, that's Trillian.
Oh, nice.
Her surname is McMillan in the film as well. And the character wearing the ace jacket, her name is Benny. Her surname is Douglas, which is Douglas Adams. But Benny comes from, there's a Doctor Who audio character on Big Finish called Bernice Summerfield, and they call her Benny for short.
Right.
So it's kind of that. Now you're gonna get a phone call from Nick Briggs going, "Tell that guy to change his name or I'm suing him." And you've got Tim.
Nick Briggs, a well-known viewer of this show.
Yeah. Well, you'd be surprised. He's got his spies everywhere. You know, like his Nick Briggs's minions all eating cockroaches and coming to get you. But Tim is named after Tim Burton.
Yeah.
Kells is Kelly Quigley, so Linnea Quigley. And no, I just wanted, some pop culture references and stuff in there. I love it.
Yeah.
So
and it's period accurate as well. It works.
Yeah, you don't have to get it, but it's like it just helps. It's one of those things. If you watch it again and you see the small print or the IMDb trivia, and it says, "Oh, the Benny character's wearing a jacket like Sophie Aldred from Ace, from Doctor Who," whether she was in it or not. But now,
she is
obviously, I'm pretty sure. Hannah, my actress, who's from Bristol, by the way, I keep saying, she's going to be wearing that, and I'm sure she'll be around. So we'll get Sophie Aldred to put the jacket on. I'm sure she'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I remember
That'd be amazing."
And it's not a copy of the
no, it's a nice homage though. And as soon as you posted it,
stuff on. And,
as soon as you posted it, I got the reference immediately. I was like, "Oh, nice! You're doing an Ace."
A lot of people
reference.
just comment that jacket looks Ace. Some people just going too many patches on that, and you're like,
you're missing the point.
That's all right. That's all right because you don't have to get it. By the way, Hannah got engaged yesterday, so congratulations to Hannah.
Congratulations to Hannah. That's awesome news.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll finish the film before she's actually married. But these things.
Yeah.
No. If it goes like Off-World, she'll have 6 kids by the time we finish it.
Yeah.
And grandchildren probably. But no, I'm really positive now because we've got Paul Putner, who's when people see his face, they'll go, "Oh, the guy from the comedy stuff," and obviously Downton Abbey most recently. That will bring in a certain number of people, a little bit of kudos. The Sophie Aldred thing will certainly bring in the interest from the geeks and the Whovians.
Absolutely. And mystery person as well, if that happens.
And mystery person, anyone sort of our age and younger will know who he is.
Yeah.
And he I think he's recently been in one of the Britain's biggest soaps occasionally. I don't watch it, but I think he's in it quite regularly, so you'll spot him from that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. I think, that's exactly what the plan is, to get a couple of slightly better known names in, because it'll push the awareness of the film, and hopefully,
yeah. I mean, like you said, even if
Sophie Aldred will,
even if it's a couple of scenes or one scene, it's name recognition,
cameos. Yeah,
and it's awesome anyway.
Yeah, my confidence has gone up a bit because I think last time I spoke to you, I was like, "Oh, I should jack all this in. It's too much."
I think you were at a bit of a low point, which I feel like every zero budget filmmaker goes through. You get to that point where you're like, "Oh, why am I doing this?
What am I doing?
Should I do this?"
Yeah, I've literally now got under a tenner in my bank account, but there's money tied up in the bloody students' fund from like I've been savings and things like that, and I'm like, well, I don't have to be struggling for food and paying the bills, and I could just dig out of that, but I don't want to, No. I mean, no one's forcing me to be broke or whatever.
Well, no, of course.
But at the end of the day, if you want to do that thing, then you got to stick to it. So I'm, quite.
Suffer for your art.
I know, right? and like a couple of people have said to me today, because they've seen I put a post up on Instagram that says, "After this film, no more Kickstarter crowdfunding." I
saw that. I was going to ask you about that.
I think a few people have taken it the wrong way, as if I'm going, "Oh, shit,
I actually took it as a positive. You were like, no, we're gonna live or die on this Kickstarter. We're doing it.
It's not like I've got no faith in my abilities.
No,
and it's not like I'm going, I'm a talentless hack, and if this don't make any money, it's proof I'm a talentless hack. It's more a case of to keep making films via crowdfunder while going broke, while going without, that people go on holidays, and my brothers have the cars, the houses, and the regular holidays and all this malarkey, and I'm sitting here, 10 layers of clothing, not paying the electric. It's not a viable way. I mean, we've dropped Off-World to the States, and
Yes,
there's no guarantee it's
congratulations,
going to
by
make
the way.
any money back at all. But Bloody Students is going to do the same kind of thing, and hopefully that will generate some kind of return. If it does, awesome, And if somebody turns around and says, "Well, look, we Off-World was all right, Bloody Students was good. What's number 3?" And I'm like, "Well, you fund it for me, and I'll make it." I'll
Yeah,
come up with an
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
But if it disappears, and I'll be like, okay, well, I've got a million other things. I've got other books I want to write. I've got other little projects and stuff. I want to help other people like yourself and all the other filmmakers I know. Want to do stuff for them, and back to acting and all that. I'll be fine. I won't be like, oh, I could have made a film. Just like it wasn't to be. But I'll give it a good bash with this one, and we'll just see how it goes. Let that be the barometer and decide what to do.
Yeah.
Because I could write the ideas I've got for films, I could just turn them into books or something, or graphic novels, or, I'd have more time to do that.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about, really. It's not a case of, like,
I agree.
And I don't want to keep nagging people, I don't want to be back in 3 years' time and go, "Hi, everyone, I am once again asking you for your money,"
Well,
like,
the thing is, people do go back to the well of Kickstarter constantly.
A lot of people do. You're right. You're right.
And it's a nice, I like the concept of Kickstarter a lot. People can pay for what they want, rather than a studio or a Netflix or whoever dictating what you will watch.
Saying, have that.
Here is the latest Star Wars. Watch
you
that.
You will like it.
You get to basically fund from the ground up. What do you want? What do you want to see? What would you like? And obviously there's pros and cons to that in terms of how much control you give people within the Kickstarter, because that can be a minefield in itself. If you give them, hey, you can help write the script. Like, oh god, then you've got a committee of hundreds of people telling you what they do and don't want.
That would be a crazy experiment and quite scary.
Yeah. But I love the concept, and I don't think there's any, shame in it or whatever.
No,
if
but
you
there
do
are
decide
people
to go
who
back.
have said to me over the last few years that they don't like crowdfunding, they don't understand it. It's begging, it's this, it's that, it's taking money out of
It's
people's
not
pockets.
begging.
I'm
You're
like,
providing a product. That people are paying for a product, and they get rewards, and they get a product. I don't. Yeah.
No, and also begging is almost guilt tripping someone. If you walk past someone in the street who's begging for money,
I've never seen you beg online for anything.
No, I say, if you like this, feel free to contribute. If you don't like it, fine.
Yeah, you're not telling people. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not putting a gun to their head, but also I'm not guilt tripping people going, well, this film's not going to get made unless the public help me. I'm not doing that.
No.
Like I say, if I walk past a homeless person and I didn't give them any money, I'll say I'm not going to be cutting my wrists about it, but I'll still be like, kind of, am I a bad person because I didn't, but that's a little bit of a guilt thing. But like I say, I'm going to make the film somehow, whether I get help or not, so it's more a case of, I think this is a cool idea, much like the other people on Kickstarter. They're making, I've just invented a salt cellar in the shape of R2D2, and they're like, oh, that's cool, help me make it, mass produce it. Or video games, or all these other things. I can't get my head around the people who think it's a really evil thing, crowdfunding.
I guess you either vibe with it or you don't.
You either get it or not.
It's a new way of thinking as well. I think a lot of people that are more traditional in the way things should be funded and the way things should be. It's a different approach, isn't it?
I've had people saying, well, if you believe in it that much, you should pay for it all. It's like, yeah, but
well, if I had the money, I would.
Exactly. I mean, someone on Instagram said to me today, this is the same person who said it was akin to begging. They said that, well, from what I understand, people who crowdfund have plenty of money and they're just being greedy because they don't want to spend their own money. I'm like, dude, that might be the case for some people. That ain't the case for me, certainly. If I had the money, I'd make it myself.
I think, unfortunately, there have been a number of instances of very wealthy celebrities or celebrities in their sphere using Kickstarter, and it has given it. Unfortunately, I think it's kind of colored some people's opinions to where they think, oh, well, actually, you've got all of this money because I've seen this person on Kickstarter, who had all this money and they already had their own video game studio, so clearly you could afford it. And it's like, well, no, because there are people that are using Kickstarter that probably shouldn't. Because what Kickstarter, the original intent of Kickstarter, the ethos of Kickstarter, is exactly what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's for.
It is helping people who would not normally have access to funding and grants and whatever to do what they think is a good idea. And the proof of the pudding will be the general public, like you say, voting with their money,
wallet,
going, I think that's a good idea. I want to put money into that.
Yeah.
I just was looking up films and stuff that got funded via, crowdfunding over the day. There was a Veronica Mars film that came out with Kristen Bell. It was like a reunion movie because Veronica Mars was a TV series.
It was, yes.
I can't remember if it was Joss Whedon was behind it or someone else. It was like that. She was like a sort of investigative reporter. But all the fans got together and chipped in like a couple of million, and they made a Veronica Mars movie not that long ago via Kickstarter.
So that's great.
And then there was Iron Sky. Do you remember that?
Oh my goodness, I'd forgotten about Iron Sky.
Nazis on the Moon.
Yeah.
Then there was Dead Snow.
Which
was the Nazis sort of dug up in the Alps or whatever, and it's the best tagline of a film ever. Eins, zwei, die.
Yeah, that is a fantastic tagline.
Yeah, and
I was watching a
Zach
movie.
Braff.
Yes,
Zach Braff. He crowdfunded quite a few things of his own, because he wanted to be an independent filmmaker, and they were like, "You're Zach Braff off the Scrubs. You must have plenty of money."
Not necessarily.
Not
not necessarily to just chuck into a project.
No,
know.
I mean, it could be tied up in other things. He might have an expensive mortgage, so he can't.
Well, yeah. You're not going to risk it. I mean, he may have a family and not want to risk the security of his family on a film, and that's
to a certain extent, whether you like Zach Braff or not, he's basically being entrepreneurial and going, well, I've got a pretty big fan base because of Scrubs. I wonder if they'll help.
And I think I've got a cool idea that people would want to buy into. And again, you're not forcing anyone to do it.
It's not greedy as in give me more of that pie. It's more like if you want to give me some pie, I'm happy to eat it. It's not like
but equally I'm not gonna knock down your door asking for it. I'm just
It's like, here it is, chip in if you like. And I've had this issue over years with people saying, well, it's not fair. I mean, you should be paying for it all yourself. I'm like, well, if I could, I would, and I wouldn't need the hassle of a crowdfunder. But crowdfunding is a great idea, and it's done. It's done wonders for lots of the USA things. A lot of things have been made, and video games especially, and things like that have made millions. I'm not asking for millions.
No, I watched a film a couple of days ago actually that I've just remembered was kickstarted. I believe it's a series now of films. My best friend was talking about this because I'm a big fan of kind of fantasy film. And she was talking. Her and her husband were watching a series of films called Mythica, and I'd never heard of it before. And I was like, okay. And she was like, well, it's low budget and it's cheesy, but it's like, traditional fantasy films. I was like, I might give that a go. And I was having a bit of a bad week, and I thought, oh, just chuck it on. It's on Freevee, right? So I can just watch it for free. I don't have to pay for it or whatever. And it was quite an enjoyable, and apparently they get better as they go on. This is the first film that they made, but it was kickstarted. It was crowdfunded, and I was like, there you go. It was obviously someone's passion project, and they rolled with it, and that eventually became a series of films that people now presumably appreciate because they're continuing. I think they're making another one. As I looked on Wikipedia, there's another one to be announced, to be confirmed when the release date is, but it's in production. So, it could, you could have Bloody Students trilogy.
You never know.
Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. It could be a trilogy for all we know.
It's got to start somewhere, and I really don't understand. I think it's maybe a generational thing or just an ethos thing.
Yeah, I mean, look at Kevin Smith. In order to make Clerks, he had a 16mm camera that he hired and stuff, but he had to max out both his parents' credit cards, to make those films, and then pay to get it to Sundance or whatever. But there was no crowdfunding at the time.
No.
So I mean, this is. I don't have people with credit cards to max out, unfortunately, and I don't have the credit.
I wouldn't want to do it anyway. You
Yeah,
know, I wouldn't want to
exactly.
take money from other people. Like you, like putting up a Kickstarter is one thing. Like
Yeah.
asking to max out your friend's credit card is
Yeah,
quite
can I have
another. You know,
20 grand on 2 credit
and
cards? And you
that's
might get it back, you might never get it back.
that's the difference, isn't it? You're not maxing out anyone's credit cards. You're just
Yeah,
asking if they would like to throw in £5, £10, £20. You don't have
yeah,
to throw in your whole credit card, and
yeah,
bit by bit, the crowd will fund your project. You know,
exactly.
and then they get a product at the end. So, you know,
I mean, if I could reach 1 million people and they all gave me £1,
there you
it'd be
go.
an amazing film, and
Yeah.
people wouldn't feel ripped off. They'd be like, "Oh,
Wow,
yeah, I
that
only
was
put
good
£1
value.
into that, but I get to watch a movie."
Yeah, it's good value. Yeah, yeah.
And again, that goes back to why I want people like Sophie Aldred to make cameos, because you reach a bigger crowd.
Yeah.
So who knows? Who knows?
Exciting.
Yeah,
Exciting
It's
times.
scary. It's a weird crossroads for me at the moment because obviously
Mm.
the one film is finally out of my hands and in the
Yeah,
States
congratulations
about to
for that.
get into the system, and
Yeah.
they're going to set up their 2023 sales strategy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they'll update us at the state of what the first thing I heard that the CEO of the distribution company is like, I really want to cut a trailer for this. I was like, okay, we'll see what you do with it.
Yeah, go for it.
That'd be interesting. It's like, have you got a turd polishing department? He's like, no, but we've got a big vat of glitter that you can pour on it. All right, great, do that. And again, you look at some other films at B movies, and it's like, I don't profess to be have brilliant movies, but I'm not at the bottom of the barrel. There's always some that are going to be still getting distribution and stuff that are not as good. So I'm happy with being at the bottom end of the barrel as long as I'm not literally on the bottom.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, like you say, the films that you make and the films that I've been making or plan to make, these may be our bad taste, brain dead equivalents or Shaun of the Dead kind of thing. If somebody said, if Working Title came to me and said, we can only find you 5 million for your next film, I'd be like, that'd be it. Get the
nowhere near
out.
enough.
I've made it in life.
Need more.
I don't think I'd know what to do. Would you know what to do with $250 million budget?
200.
Hey, Mr. Durs,
wouldn't have.
I like the cut of your jib. Here's 250 million. Go for it. You're like, what?
What would it? I can't even conceive of that much money.
You can't, can you? It's like, suddenly.
I just feel like I don't. Am I being like? I appreciate that it. There's where you shoot, right? Because you're like, okay, well, I've got 250 million. Guess I'll film in downtown LA for a laugh.
Yeah.
VFX artists need to be paid. Actors need to be paid. I just feel like once you're like over the if you're like 250 million, you are misspending somewhere.
It's squandering.
It feels crazy to me. Like I'm just like, really. I mean, I know it's like Avengers, but could you have not done it cheaper?
Right? I'll give you an example. I worked in Pinewood Studios for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
One of the last jobs I did was to help cast up a minion from the Despicable Me.
Yeah.
They had these minions that were about this tall, 2 foot tall, separate arms and legs. So we cast it up, and because basically someone said, I really want one of those. He was like having a visit with our boss, who's also a Bristolian. He's back in Bristol now. But they were having a visit, and they saw it in the corner of his office and said, oh, is that for sale? And he was like, no. Have you got the moles? Yeah. Can I have one? He's like, yeah, we'll cast one up for you. I think it was priced up at about $2.5 grand.
Wow.
Right. So over the course of 3 or 4 weeks, it paid for me and 3 or 4 other people wages, to finish this thing off and make it and paint it and finish it. And so I was like, nowadays you could do it on 3D printing for a tenth of that, you know, and that's bigger. That's bigger, and it costs a lot less than $2.5 grand, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what happens when we were in Pinewood and we had to go to there's a on-site juicing store where you'd pick up rubber gloves and drill bits and things like that. We'd go over and get like 10 boxes of rubber gloves for sanding and all this, and the price on those is like, we only need like, I need like 3 pairs, and they're like, go and get a box of 200.
Yeah.
And then Juicer will mark them up because they're on site at Pinewood. They know they're a necessity. It's like Mothercare. You have to buy it, so we're going to put the prices up. It's like, oh yeah, these 200 pairs of gloves in a box, it's 300 quid, mate. And you're like, what? It's like everything. The price has got, like you say, I want to hire a place. First place I went to was in Newport, and they said, yeah, it's £700 a day plus VAT. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm out, because I told you I had a budget of 20 grand, for example. And they were like, well, we want all of that. And I'm like, no, that's the entire movie.
That's not going to work, is it? Yeah.
So I found some other places that are a heck of a lot cheaper, and you scale down and you make things fit. And if somebody came to me with a 250 million budget, I'm like, well, you either spend all that budget on Robert Downey Jr. and his entourage,
I guess,
or it's like, right, give me £250. I'll give you 50 movies over the next 10 years, because I don't need that much money for one film.
No, or everyone gets paid very well.
Yeah, we all have parties every night because we've all been working for $500,000 a day or something. It's ridiculous.
Well, you give me 250 million and I will deliver to you this £25 film.
Yeah,
deal.
Because I've had a real party. It's £25 on the film, and the rest went on a cruise afterwards.
It's an inconceivable amount of money. See, when you get when you're at like 1 million, 2 million, you're like, okay, that's people properly paid. You're filming on locations. You're doing it all. Decent equipment.
Film.
That's fine. I understand that. But once you're in the hundreds of millions, I'm like, I don't even know what you're doing with that.
And also, there's your average blockbuster now has to spend about $15 million on marketing alone, just advertising.
Yeah, well, that's the it's almost half the budget,
that back,
right?
Haven't you? So before you go into into profit, you've got to earn the 15 million on top of your budget back. So that's why a lot of films just do not. They've got to make. Apparently, I think the formula is roughly you've got to make 1.5 times your budget back, to be considered in profit or something like that. So it's like, dang, that's a whole maths and numbers ball game that I just
imagine the stress of that, because if you're paid 250 million, then you have to like,
it better be good.
Yeah,
and you get into situations like where directors are thrown off films, and Ron Howard has to come in and fix it, and Spielberg. The shark stopped working, and it was like people were telling him, well, you ain't going to work ever again in this industry, kid. And he's like, oh God.
Yeah.
Your stars are fighting and your shark's not working, and I've got to film with a shark, but I can't film the shark. It's like, oh my God. That was like lightning in a bottle. Everything again went wrong, but he churned out one of the most classic films of all time.
Oh, Jaws is.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Absolute classic.
Film. It really is.
I saw a clip of Quentin Tarantino talking about perfect films, sort of subjectively, and he said Jaws is one of the perfect films. And I'm like, can't argue with that, But when you see the documentary of how bad it went, it actually fills me with hope that even the best filmmakers have all the problems.
Oh, of course they do, I'm sure. Especially early on, once you're at the level where people are getting paid millions, and well, even then, actually, they're probably even then,
Yeah, I mean, you could have
because then ego gets really involved when you're at the high-paid actors end, so it probably never stops.
They want to change the script and they want to do this and that, and sometimes they don't turn up because they got hospitalized from partying too hard. And imagine being a director who worked with Robert Downey Jr. during his bad days,
the time. Yeah.
Oh no! But now, he's an absolute money spinner, but he's a very expensive money spinner. So you can have him, or you can have someone a wee bit cheaper. Who doesn't have as much pull, but at the same time,
they're reliable.
It's like if I managed to secure, let's say, Idris Elba, for example, for Bloody Students, right? I'd have to pay him a fortune. He'd bring in a lot of money because people are like, Idris Elba, wow.
Yeah,
Idris, if you're watching this, by the way, mate, you're more than
welcome. Yeah,
drop me a line. I mean, it would be quite scary knowing you've got to get a good performance out of Idris Elba, and it's a big.
Did you ever see
responsibility?
Yeah. Did you ever see the quote from? It was an interview that John Carpenter did a couple of years back now, and he, the interviewer asked them. They were like, "Hey, you don't score movies anymore. Why don't you score movies anymore?" and he basically said, "No one's asked." And he was like, "I would score a movie
we
for
talked
free."
about this last time.
Oh, did we? Okay, my memory's terrible.
Yeah, and it bears repeating because
he was like,
no
"If
one
someone
asked
had asked, I would have done it for free." And I was like, "Oh my god!"
If I could ever bump into, John Carpenter,
just be like, "Hey, buddy." Because like if I could pick any score for like John Carpenter is like top. Like John Carpenter in his prime, those soundtracks are just incredible. Just it hits every button for me. So I'm like,
and look,
100%.
Hand up, honesty, complete disclosure. The guy I've got working on Bloody Students, DJ Keltec.
DJ Keltec's great. He did the Vader thing back in the day.
That went viral. It got noticed on
He's
the Star
great,
Wars website.
and he did the fantastic War of the Worlds one as well. The Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds that he remade. Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
Yeah,
well, that's a name I haven't heard for a long time, but that's fantastic.
He's a Cardiff guy, and obviously he started off being a scratch DJ, and he still does all that. But he's getting into production in a big way. He's done a lot of production scores and stuff that can be licensed out. But I got hold of him and I said, I know you're getting into synthwave, and he's like, well, synthwave, yes, but more dark wave because synthwave is happier.
Yeah,
it's like your Miami Vice type stuff, but dark wave is like he wants to keep it a bit more hip hop beats and scary. He recently just put out a track called Wednesday, and it's almost like Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones.
Oh, nice.
With a Wednesday thing, and it's all synthesized up, and it's really good. And I said, look, John Carpenter scores, right? He goes, yeah, I love him. I was like, I just want that.
That's what I want. Yeah, just give me that,
as much
please.
John Carpenter as you can do without getting fired. And he's like, I know all the sounds he uses. I know the keyboards he uses. Like, just
amazing.
Bring it in. Escape from New York, The Fog, Prince of Darkness, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'll layer it up. I can't wait because I want it to look like a VHS movie.
Yeah.
You hear all this wonky synthwave and dark, all retro 80s music. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Don't get me wrong. I got approached the other day by a guy I've never heard of before, American, who's got his own studio. He said he scored lots of horror movies and comedy horrors and spoofy stuff. And I went to his website and listened to it. I'm like, this is really good. It's orchestral. It's all keyboard based. And I'm like, if I didn't have Keltec on board, I'd be like, let's talk about prices and see if we can get you in.
See if we can get you.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
But I've got Lloyd Keltec now.
That's
and
fantastic.
I'm like, he's the man for the job. He's got a big following himself.
Yeah. Well, of course, I've got Rich, who scores all of my movies and will continue forever to score my movies. I think because he's just he's again, you find someone that just does what it's like that's exactly what I want, and he delivers that every time. I just remembered you were saying if someone gave you a proper budget movie you would make, what would you do? And I realized, I thought about this the other day, and I messaged my friend this, and I think you will appreciate this as a concept. I was like, I said the other day, what was I watching? I was watching Battlestar Galactica, the original pilot for the original series. And it suddenly dawned on me, and I was like, do you know what I would love to see? And if someone wants to make this, I won't be mad if you just take this idea and do it. Maybe someone already has, and someone will tell me that they've done it, and I will watch it immediately.
Right.
I would love to see a science fiction movie with 70s aesthetic. So like the 70s aesthetic, but earnest, taken seriously. Like a modern movie with that style, those visuals. Yeah. Serious though, not like we're not doing a parody. It's not for laughs.
Yeah, we're not doing Spaceballs.
No,
we're doing
a genuinely earnest, serious science fiction film that looks like Silent Running, or it looks like, you know what I mean? Like that would be amazing. Yeah. Like to see a modern film with that aesthetic that takes it seriously though, not for jokes, like actually serious. I'd love to see that. I don't think it would ever happen. See, that's the kind of thing. If you throw money at me, I will do something stupid like that.
But it's well, you know what? Stranger Things has kind of done that. They tried to make something from the very first series that is reminiscent of even down to the
they've got the 80s,
all that kind of the graphics, the opening credits, the aesthetic. It feels like a kind of Spielberg era 80s.
I want to see people in like lycra spacesuits and helmets with LED lights.
Yeah, but again, I was one of those kids who saw Battlestar Galactica, go, they're just ripping Star Wars off. But I grew to love it, you know.
That is darker than you remember as well.
It is a lot darker than you remember.
Although, having said that, so are a lot of those shows. I mean, Buck Rogers, the first couple of episodes of Buck Rogers are really dark. It's like, whoa, I forgot how dark this is, and a lot of swearing as well and stuff. You're like, oh god, it's quite. It becomes very campy. It becomes what people associate it with. But early on, it's a dark.
A friend of mine sold me the full Buck Rogers the other day.
Oh, fantastic!
It's like a 6 or 7 discer.
I own it on DVD myself, and I love Buck Rogers. That first season is superb. Season 2 is a bit more naff,
patchy, yeah.
But I do love Hawk, and I still think that
he's a
that
great
ship
character.
Design is one of the coolest. Like, it's like you're not going to get cooler than a spaceship that's shaped like a hawk. I'm sorry, it's the coolest design.
It's like Sparrowhawk from Terrorhawks,
it's just
that
awesome.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's a ship that had claws, used to grab stuff, didn't it? Yeah. But Buck Rogers, the opening, I remember seeing it because like with Battlestar Galactica, they edited it into a movie and put it out theatrically in the UK, didn't they? So I saw it as a kid, and there's the bit when Buck has a bit of a wobbly because he's just been
he's like, I'm going to go off into the wastelands of Earth.
Yeah, I've had enough. And he goes off for a sulk, and he gets attacked by mutants. I'm like, this is really scary.
It's really scary, and like Earth is just a radioactive wasteland now, and it's full of mutants and stuff. It's like, oh my god.
And it feels very Beneath the Planet of the Apes kind of.
Yes,
you're like,
it's
wow,
very
Omega
much
Man
that
type
vibe.
stuff.
But they imagine that, but a movie now. Like, they make a movie now that looks like that with modern cameras and stuff, but just has that aesthetic. I like that aesthetic. I don't know. I think it's the kid in me. I remember watching that stuff as a kid, so I'm like, yes, give me that. You know?
Yeah, I mean, there are films like that. I think there's one called Turbo Kid. I've seen bits of it.
Oh, that's a film I've always meant to watch, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen bits of it. And one of my effects people, she said, go watch Turbo Kid. It's an absolute classic because it's done in that 80s VHS style, and it's quite earnest as well.
Actually, Psycho Gorman was a bit like that. I watched that recently.
That's the other one I was thinking about.
I did see that.
So it's like,
but that's 80s. It's kind of doing the 80s thing. But yeah, good stuff.
So
we've gone off the rails as we always do.
Do you remember Kung Fury?
I loved Kung Fury. That was fun.
That was crowdfunded as well.
That was a Kickstarter, and they stretched their goals to where that became a lot longer as well. Because originally it was just going to be a short, and it ended up. I mean, it was still short, but it was 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes long.
Yeah,
it became a lot longer because
that's right,
you know, that was all VFX. That film. Fantastic fun though.
Yeah, but we've gone off on a huge tangent from.
Always do. I'm sorry.
From the 12th day.
The 12th day. Yes.
Where are you along the line with it?
Oh God, I want to say.
Are you shooting chronologically?
No. Good Lord, no.
Just when you can, with who you can, whenever you can.
Yeah, I've tried to do. The days when everyone needs to be there are scary, so just like I do the scenes with like a couple of people, and you know. And so I've been doing scenes with increasingly more people. But there were scenes that were quite isolated, and I was like, well, I haven't filmed for a while. I haven't done anything for a while. So Saffron and Janie were around, which we did the coffee shop scene because it was like, okay, there's just 2 people. I can just focus on, focus on getting that.
Yeah, that's in the trailer, isn't it? Because
it's in the janky trailer. Yes.
You've got. I mean, but fair play to you. You got a trailer out straight away without filming the. I was like,
it was 3 days, I think, of filming at that point. So we had a couple of things. It was mainly because I this time I decided that I wanted to. I've been thinking about it for a while. I use Vegas usually for editing.
Okay.
And
I need something like that.
Well, I decided
I want to at least do a rough edit myself.
I decided to go for it, and I was like, I am gonna subscribe for Premiere Pro. And I'm going to learn Premiere Pro. And that's where that trailer came from, was that I had the Monday off and I wanted to learn Premiere Pro. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I was like, well, I need something to actually edit. And I don't want to start editing scenes necessarily, because if I don't get on with Premiere Pro, my subscription will not go beyond this month. And then I've just why would I bother, So I was like, well, maybe I can just chuck a trailer together. And in the end, I was like, well, you know what? I'm reasonably happy with this. I might just post it up and it's something, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's where that came from. But yeah, so we've done a couple of scenes. We did we've done coffee shop scene. We did a couple of like more horror-y scenes. Yeah. It's going well. I think we're about 15-20% of the way through, maybe.
Mm.
But a lot of it, it's starting to take shape, I think, which is the main thing.
Good. Yeah.
It's just we're getting onto those scenes now where we need quite a lot of the cast. And the other thing as well was that obviously it's a film that's meant to be set in winter, so a lot of the stuff that was outdoors I wanted to get done, because if I don't get it done now, well, we've run out of time.
It's going to turn into summer, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, there were a couple of scenes that we still hadn't filmed, and we were hoping to do it a couple of weeks ago, and one of the actors ended up couldn't make it. We put it back to last weekend. It was too wet, and now I'm like, it's spring. Let's do it in September. Fine, we'll just that can go back.
Gotcha.
That can go to the end of the year. But I was trying to get as much done as I could outdoors now. Before spring happened, basically, and now we'll move indoors for the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's coming together though.
Yeah, literally, the weather forces you to do stuff, and
it does.
That does worry me about when I've got quite I always seem to have ideas that have more than like 5 characters in. I'm like,
I try my best. I mean, this time I was like really determined, and there are very few scenes where everyone's in the room on
good.
purpose, but there still are quite a few. You can't help it, really. Eventually,
okay. And in some of my scenes, obviously, like every film in the genre, people get picked off one by one, kind of thing. So,
so it gets progressively smaller as you go on.
Yeah, it gets easier to handle because obviously trying to get everyone's schedules to line up, and then I've had so many issues with I've got a wall planner where I put little stickers on, right, we can have that day in this venue. Then they've got back to me and said, oh, sorry, we've just decided you can't have this day or that day, and you're moving everything around. Then you go back to the cast and they go, well, I can do this day, but I can't do that day. And someone says, and you're like, what am I going to do?
That's the thing.
Like, everything's constantly in flux.
And I am working up the courage to do that now. Actually, the last 2 days I've been procrastinating about sending out that message to everyone, knowing full well that then it becomes when can people do? Oh, I can't do this day. Oh, well, I can't do that day. Oh, well, I can't. Okay, well, Well,
that's it. I can't even make a shooting schedule now because I don't know who's going to be available on, say, the last week of September.
Yeah,
I don't know who's going to be available. So I can't say we're doing this scene for definite. It's almost like they've got to turn up, and on the day I'll go, right, everyone turn to page. Well, I know you haven't rehearsed, but we're going to have to block this out here and now.
Because, there is an element of that.
Yeah, and luckily, the stuff that I'm filming in September are sort of much smaller scenes in a different area of the museum, which I can shoot in my local community centre.
Yeah,
and there's only one scene that involves Paul Putner. It's near the end of the film, so if he comes down for a day or 2 days, that'll be affordable and doable with him there, and that's half of his involvement in the film sorted. Sophie Aldred is more taking place in the daytime museum trip, so that's near the start of the film. So we have to nail down a venue. Like I'm looking at my 3rd venue now. And it looks really good, but again, I've got to get back to them next week. Had a nice chat with her, and she's also said, well, we're also a community cinema, so we can do a screening of Offworld for you if you want.
That would be great. You could do it ultimately a screening of Bloody Students in the place where you
absolutely.
That would be great.
Goes without saying. I'll say, well, what it is, we're going to be shooting Bloody Students here, but here's my first film, for better or for worse, and you've got a captive audience to do a Q&A, and say, look, we're shooting the next film. This is what it is. If you like the idea, jump onto the Kickstarter or whatever. Or
that's great idea.
If the Kickstarter's finished, here's our PayPal. Support it. So
excellent stuff.
And I want to say thank you to you as well, because the previous podcasts we've done have kept me keen. And in the last one, I was like, I don't even know if I should be doing it. So that's it. It's boosted me up a little bit. And
well, these are half podcast, half like therapy session.
But yeah, I'll do another one because we kind of want to fall into this every 6 months. We do a podcast.
Well, it's good. It's fun because we're kind of catching up on the progress of both of our films, and sometimes we have our little complaints and
Yeah, well, I'll have
support each other through this.
I'll do an interview on my channel. In maybe a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, we'll be in the middle of May then.
Yeah,
we'll sort something out, and I'll put one on my channel, and we'll just keep bouncing back and forth.
Sounds good
And
to me.
it's good because we'll be looking back over this, back in once both our films are finished, and go,
It'll be
oh, do you
fun.
remember we got to that stage and how things changed, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
do you
It'll be
remember
fun.
that time you had a phone call from Quentin Tarantino and John Carpenter turned up with a keyboard?
Yeah, that'll be amazing.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun to look back on all of this. And like I said, it's nice. I've never really been in this position where a friend is also making a film at the same time, and we can kind of do this. It's good fun.
Did I tell you about a chap I've been following on Twitter called Laurie Brewster? He's up in Scotland. He runs a low-budget horror studio called Hex Studios.
Right.
And he's currently doing a Kickstarter for a movie he's working on at the moment, which is a sword and sorcery sleazy horror.
Oh,
Make of that
sign
what you
me
will.
up.
But he's got a website called BritishHorrorStudio.com, and it's just a holding page at the moment. But he's trying to do. He said, I'm trying to open up a horror production and distribution studio for films like, he said, in the style of Hammer and Amicus.
Speaking my language.
He said, at the moment, all I'm doing is collecting people's email addresses for our mailing list. But he's looking at funding. They've distributed some films in the past. He's done a couple of features already, so he knows what he's talking about. He seems like an interesting guy. So it's BritishHorrorStudio.com, and I've chatted to him on Twitter and stuff. And I like the fact that he's thinking in terms of. He's younger than the pair of us, I think. But I like the way he's thinking in terms of Hammer and Amicus. Going, we don't have a base for mid to low budget horror stuff anymore, and there should be one.
There should definitely be one.
And he's been looking at places like dilapidated theaters and hospitals and stuff. I mean, it's probably going to be up in his neck of the woods, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities where he might look at your stuff, or even Bloody Students. If I don't go with like the American distributor, they're still not in stone, but I could say, well, are you interested in a comedy horror? It's another flavor of horror, to put out through the British Horror Studio setup. So it's interesting times. He's had a huge influx of people following him and saying we're interested in supporting your studio. So it's nice to know that there's someone else. He's got some great contacts apparently, and he's willing to put money into a big facility that will have studios that you can film in as well, and also some interesting scenery and stuff, but also have a distribution model as well. So very interesting times. Right. Well, we've been chatting for quite a while, so I shall let you go, mate. I do have a number of jobs that are begging out to be finished tonight, as usual.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
All-nighter.
As always.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
This will go live when you tell me it will go live.
Okay.
That will either be Monday or I guess Tuesday, potentially, depending on which day you would prefer. And
again, because of what I've said, as long as it's in May, I think we're okay.
Yeah. Well, I want to get it out as soon as as early as the Kickstarter launches. Would be good. I think.
So I could put the link in, and a link in the description to the Kickstarter. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
But yeah, thank you very much for coming on again. And like I said, I'll happily jump on your stream in a couple of weeks' time, and we'll catch up again. But thanks for watching, everybody, and listening if you're listening on the audio end. And we will catch you soon. And I'll cut that there. Cool.
Alrighty.
That was good. Sorry,